In this video, I want to talk about the Pits of the Underworld, of which was not too much revealed of, but it's a gruesome place to be in. Let's dive into it. We had first seen the pits from Spartacus' sides of things, in blood and sand, before Gods of the Arena was made, as well as before Animes was shown in the pits in Vengeance. So technically, Animes was the first person to be in the pits as seen in Vengeance. The difference was that Animes was already shown in the pits as a general slave, and already fighting at a very young age. Not much is known whether he was anywhere before or why he was in the pits in the first place. Spartacus, for instance, was sent because he disobeyed and was a great investment, so Borealis couldn't just simply cut him loose against Crixus that easily and had to announce in their fight that Spartacus is not to be killed and was instead sent to the Pits of the Underworld. The Pits of the Underworld is a gruesome place where only animals are sent to, except for Animes who rose to be a champion. Borealis was known to traffic in the pits as the man who got Animes to Borealis' father we are talking about in Vengeance episode 2, knew him and talked in a way in which it's implied that Borealis' father was there more often, even before purchasing Animes. The pits are a more brutal, lawless and smaller version of the arena, where shamed men can fight or be put to their deaths. It is the equivalent of today's modern underground fighting ring, where there are few rules and no honor. Usually, one would send his slave to the pits if he is condemned to death or has no honor left nor any value. As Borealis would state, a place where you needn't follow any rules because none exist, the Pits of the Underworld. The pit is a place of unrefined brutality as well as violence. Where there are rules of combat in the arena, there is only one rule in the pit. Only one survives. The only purpose is to kill or be killed, whilst the onlookers place bets on the respective fighters and revel in the bloodshed. There are no restraints between the crowd and the pit. Before each fight begins, the two fighters are brought forward and they pick a symbol out of a bag which determines which weapon they will wield. A sword is amongst the weapons, along with an axe, a hammer, knuckle dusters, daggers, and many other weapons. Some fighters receive no weapon at all. The fights in the pit are uncontrolled and the fighters can use anything they find as a weapon, including the sand they stand on. All known battles in the pits were when Spartacus was in the pits, Curza was in the pits, the gladiator from the beginning, and Animes was in the pits. So let's start from Animes. As a teenage boy, Animes was forced to fight in the pit. His opponent threw him around, but Animes finally used a bone fragment to stab him in the guts. This victory catches the attention of the visiting Titus Lentulus Borealis, who recruits Animes to his ludus. Animes' times in the pits were over after he was bought by Borealis, until he of course returned to the pits in Vengeance, but we'll come to that in a sec. First, let's start from Curza and Spartacus now. Curza and Spartacus were sent to the pits because one disobeyed, and one, I actually don't know why Curza was sent to the pits. He was the new gladiator. I guess he showed no skill in combat and was condemned to the pits beside Spartacus. The exact reason why Curza was condemned is unknown, as he didn't do anything dishonorable as we've seen at least, but anyways. Curza had to fight Ixion, also called Malaise, the style to fight with a hammer. Ixion killed him and yeah, you know the rest with his face. Later on, Spartacus fought multiple opponents in the pits against Myrmex, someone with boxing gloves, Vinculum, meaning against someone with chains, and also Mytilus and Liberius. These were all of Spartacus' fights and he beat them all. Hell, even after being beaten, Spartacus still managed to kill his last opponent. He also killed the one who Curza fought against, Ixion. All of the above mentioned names like Liberius and Mytilus are names referring to specific fighting styles, such as with axe, gloves, hammers, because the exact names of the fighters are of course unknown. Animes later on in Vengeance returned to the pits as he saw no honor in himself anymore after all that happened. Animes actually wanted one opponent to defeat him as he no purpose anymore, but he was so skilled all his opponents failed to do so until Asher stopped a certain fight in which Anime's wish would have been granted. Afterwards, the pits were never seen in the series ever again. By taking a look, this place is somewhere around the underground of Capua, but it's not like it's completely hidden when people like Alanista Bariaris can engage in it, or Ovidius knows where to find it. Also in the pits, there were people chained around the whole viewer's location, likely to entertain the crowd as the fights are going on. Most people fighting in the pits were either bargained for or against that with loads of coin, as seen by Bariaris and Asher. You could also say the pits were a place in which gladiators fought, but we can't directly refer to everyone down there as gladiators. Animes, for instance, though, was not a gladiator, because he fought already at a very young age, and I doubt he was fighting in the arena before coming to the pits at a very young age. So yeah, most are likely slaves with no honor or punished ones, sent to their end in the pits. It is unknown who was the exact hoster in the pits, but the moderator who announces the fights always wore some kind of armory, which I found interesting as compared to anybody else. He was the only one to wear an armor like that. I guess it is to show that he is the one who hosts the fights, but we don't exactly know who exactly hosts the fights. He was only the moderator, but who is the head behind the whole Pit of the Underworld? And this is basically all we know about the Pits of the Underworld. So to conclude, it is a place where people fight without honor. There's only one rule: you either kill or be killed. That is about it. You can use anything as weapons. There are no restraints between the crowd and the fighters, as seen in Spartacus's fights, and anything can happen in these fights. It is a place where bets are placed between the two fighters, respectively. Whichever wins, the coin is bargained for. And this basically concludes the Pits of the Underworld. It's basically an underground fighting arena ring, as in today's modern underground fighting places, I'd say.